Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. I'm joined here by our senior executives in Westchester County Government and Administration, Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins, our Director of Operations, Joan McDonald, and then also by senior members of our police department, the Westchester County Department of Public Safety, led by Chief Inspector John Hodges. We have other individuals from our team here in the room. On Monday, there was an incident at the Garden of Remembrance, which is a county park facility just half a block down the street from where we are on Martine Avenue and the corner of Martin Luther King Boulevard, in which two flyers with adhesive backing were placed on two of the signs on the outside perimeter fence of the Garden of Remembrance. For those who are not familiar with it, and you're welcome to view it and get B-roll right after this, it is a fenced-in area on county land that was created back in the 1980s by a group of citizens and with the support of County Executive Andrew O'Rourke as a permanent remembrance for those who were lost in the Holocaust during the 1930s and 40s in Nazi-controlled Germany. And the Garden of Remembrance has an outer wrought iron fence, and then inside there is a depiction of gates that mirror the gates of concentration camps, and then a low-rise stone circular area that lists the various different concentration camp locations, and then areas to sit and contemplate for those who come to visit the park. We believe that the incident occurred on Monday. We have not yet fixed a time for that. Our police investigators are looking at all the different information available to them in cooperation with the White Plains Police Department. There are some cameras that will help us determine what can be determined about who may have done this. They are not yet at a point where they have an individual to focus on or individuals to focus on, but there's information that still needs to be sifted through. The incident, we believe, occurred on Monday. We don't have a time specific. It was discovered on Tuesday and then reported to the proper authorities. The offending flyers were removed. Again, with an adhesive backing, it took some effort to get them off. If you're there now, you'll see that it has been cleaned from that particular situation. Because of the timing, that it was at the time before Yom Kippur, which is the most solemn day on the Jewish religious calendar, and because it was done at a location which is specifically put aside to remember those who suffered from anti-Semitic behavior in the days of Nazi Germany, we certainly believe this was a purposeful act of hatred. This was not an accidental situation. This is not a prank. This is not something that was done sort of offhanded. The offensive material, which we're not going to describe at this point, is something that we have found, investigators have found, is available on the internet, so that whoever obtained this most likely was able to obtain it from some site, and with adhesive backing, place it where this individual thought it would do the most hatred benefit. The investigation will cover all of these things, and at this point, because the investigation is ongoing, we don't want to release any other additional information or details, as you can expect. Ultimately, what we hope will happen is that the perpetrator will be identified and will be brought to justice. There would be a prosecutorial element to this, and the facts of the case would be used in a prosecution, and so too much advanced information out into the general public domain might prejudice a case along those lines. Suffice to say, the graphic that was on this flyer was offensive. It was offensive not only to people who are Jewish, but people of the Christian faith, and the wording on the flyer was obscene and objectionable. And there's no debate about this. Any of those of us who have seen it and what the depiction was, this is clearly a statement of hatred across the board. In terms of our response as a community, not just as a government of the County of Westchester, we have dialogued with the Holocaust Memorial Foundation. Of course, this, as we're speaking today, is still during the day of Yom Kippur. Most of our friends who are Jewish are still observing that Day of Atonement and are in synagogue settings as we speak now, so they're not really available for comment or advice, but we have planned as part of a larger group tomorrow, 12 noon, at that location to have a vigil. We expect it'll last a fairly short period of time, that we will have representatives of the major religions a rabbi, a Christian minister, reverend, imam, and so forth, to lead us in some thoughtful discussion, prayers, very, very simple. It is not intended to be a forum for government speaking or questions and answers of government officials. We will stand there as representatives of the Westchester community to show solidarity and that we push back on this type of hatred. I think we all understand pretty clearly that when hatred is directed at any group of individuals, it's in truth directed at all groups of individuals. What has made this country strong, not my opinion, what has made this country strong over its many years is the fact that people of very different backgrounds, different faith traditions, different ethnicities, men and women and old and young have contributed to the economic engine of this country and to the intellectual capacity of this country, and that's what's helped us exceed so many other nations in result. The minute we turn to start to divide that nation into ethnic groups and we let hatred flourish, we work at the very foundations of the country. We work at the very foundations that the Founding Fathers set forth as our principles. These are not principles created by those of us who are here today, by this administration, or by any singular group of people. This is part of our common American belief and our common American faith. And so when we stand up together, make a simple faith. We're Americans. We hold certain truths to be self-evident, and that when hatred manifests itself in this fashion, we will both pursue the person who sponsors that hatred, and if there is a basic method to bring them to proper punishment, we will do that, and we will also make sure that there is no home for hatred here. With that, we'll open it up to any questions that you'd like to ask. Yes?
Sir, wasn't there also graffiti found inside? Can you describe that and what the relation?
We're not sure that there was some graffiti found inside the garden. We don't believe it connects to this situation, and we're not sure at all that it was represented as anti-Semitic graffiti. Any graffiti in a public setting, breaks the law, and obviously has to be dealt with at some level. But it is one thing for somebody to, spray paint something or put a name on something that they shouldn't do, completely different from somebody who advances a message of hatred. The other graffiti we do not believe ties into the hatred that was on the external signage.
But are you looking for the person responsible for the graffiti?
Well, we're looking at everything that happened in that park over the period of time. As I mentioned, there are a number of cameras, not just immediately there, but in certain proximity. And I'll defer to the police professionals. They have a certain methodology about how they go about trying to identify with the whereabouts of an individual. And the person who is in that park has to then transport themselves and thereby trip other cameras and other things. There's also the potential for eyewitness reports of people who might have seen an individual or perhaps a vehicle in an area that was not expected. But all of that is part of the existing professional police work that's going on now. And it may take some time for them to know exactly how that puts together.
Just the timing-wise, do you think the graffiti happened sometime before Monday?
Well, we believe it happened on Monday. There was no report of it this past Monday, this being Wednesday. There was no report of it as of early in the day on Monday. So had it happened previously, we would have expected during daylight hours of Monday for someone to have seen it. It's not a place of congregation necessarily, but it is a place where people pass by. Folks walk to the train station, people walk from the county courthouse complex to this building or to other places. So we suspect it would have been seen were it done over the weekend or were it done earlier in the day. It's possible it was done during daylight hours. We do not have a specific read yet as to the exact time frame of when we think it happened, but most likely it happened at a time on Monday, which meant the first sign of detection was on Tuesday during daylight hours.
So if you do think then they happened together at the same?
Well, again, the inner graffiti, which we do not attach to the external graffiti and does not appear to be an anti-Semitic action, happened inside the perimeter of the park. You would have to go inside the park to see that graffiti. That was on the ground on one of the steps leading to the main area of the symbolic gates. The stickers were on the external side that would be easily seen if you were a pedestrian walking up the street. So most likely, if the two items were done at different times, you'd see the external stickers, but you might not have seen whatever the graffiti was inside. So it certainly, it appears to be two separate sets of situations. Defacing public property is a crime at a certain level. A hate crime is of a higher level concern. If we suspect that there are two separate incidents that happened because of time frame and discovery to be, somewhat linked, but we don't think they're particularly linked unless in the process of the investigation we find that there is some linkage. But at this point, we don't think there's a linkage to it. What we're concerned about were the stickers that were affixed to the two signs on the outside fence on either side of the gate that enters into the park.
So can you talk about hate crimes overall nationally? We've seen an increase in them, anti-Semitic or otherwise. What does it look like here in this county?
Well, the statistics we've heard is that, there have been some incidents of hate crimes in Westchester County. They appear not to be coordinated between any particular organization. There are some examples that we've heard over the course of the last couple of years, if you want to generalize it. We don't think we've had quite the same incidents that may happen in other jurisdictions. We hear that in New York City the numbers are up more significantly and dramatically, and there could be any number of reasons for it. The Westchester population, although it's 1 million people in the county, is not as concentrated as you have when you're in Manhattan or the Bronx or Brooklyn or Queens and so forth, so there's not quite the same situation. But I would say this much, it's not a question of volume, it's a question of incident. And even if it's one incident by one individual, it's clearly unacceptable to us. And to the extent that people believe that there's a climate that is more tolerant of this, that a person who holds these hatreds inside of them and that they can express them publicly, that somehow the climate of the larger society is now more tolerant of that, we're not tolerant of that. And we really do believe that it's that sign of hatred is an anti-American expression of feeling and is not acceptable. And so even if it's one incident in a one-off situation, we intend to do what we can to identify it and track it down. The location of this particular incident is more egregious than someone in a bathroom stall in a high school. That's egregious as well. But this is in public for everybody to see, not in a smaller area. This is at a facility, I know I'm repeating myself, but at an area that's been set aside specifically to remember those who died because of anti-Semitism. We can't help but think this was an extremely purposeful act by somebody who holds that hatred and wants to express it to the world in an arrogant and in a dismissive fashion. And so we have to push back on this incident, even if our general statistics do not show a significant spike in these situations in Westchester. And let me give you one cautionary note. Tracking these statistics in Westchester County is different from New York City. New York City has one singular New York Police Department, covers the 5 boroughs, 8 million people. We have in the vicinity of 40 separate police departments. Our county police has a function of policing our parks and our parkways, Hutchinson River Parkway, Cross County, and so forth. But other municipal police departments do the enforcement and the patrol in their communities. So to get an accurate picture, we would probably have to survey I think there's about 40 other local police departments, and then aggregate those numbers. It's a little trickier for us to do that, to get an apples-to-apples comparison. We're certainly going to do that in the days to come because we're looking for patterns. We're looking to see, did this show up anyplace else? And if it showed up in a part of the county, was it a geographic cluster in that part of the county? Does that tell us something about who may have perpetrated this and where they may live?
So it's not something you've done just yet, but
No, this is what's ongoing. And as I said, I have tremendous faith in our county Department of Public Safety, our Commissioner Sheriff Tom Gleason, Deputy Commissioner Terrence Rayner. We have now 2 chief inspectors, John Hodges, Chris Calabrese, and they run a very professional department. We leave to them that action, and as they come to some judgments, then they'll share that with us. And we'll certainly share it with you. We have no reason not to share these things publicly. We just want to make sure we're giving you accurate information and information that will be part of the public domain without us compromising what might yet be prosecution in this area. And since I'm not either a lawyer or a police professional, I tread lightly in these areas. So, other questions that anyone may have of the press? If so, we appreciate your time. Thank you for coming, and we will keep you posted on this. Catherine Chaffee, our Director of Communication, will have a direct line linkage with you, and if you have any questions you want to follow up on this, after this, by all means, reach out to Catherine. We'll be happy to get back to you. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you.